Awesome. Doing fine.
Terry, how are you doing?
Good.
What is the best thing that happened to you last week?
Let's see. Best thing that happened last week? Okay. Anyways.
Hi there, Rachel Ostergren here, coming to you live from my dining room. As you all know, because of coronavirus, L&M is closed for the next few weeks, but that does not mean you will not be getting FDN content. Now, because of quarantine, I have been watching a lot of Disney+, specifically Pixar movies. So today I will be rating every single Pixar movie, all the way from the original Toy Story to Toy Story 4. Alright, so for our first Pixar movie, we have the original Toy Story. This is a great start to Pixar's reputation because it's kind of a simple concept, but it's told in such an interesting way, and it sets up their trajectory as a company that tells a very human story from a not human standpoint. It just overall has a lot of heart and a really sweet message. So I would give it a 7 out of 10. Our next movie is A Bug's Life, and this isn't a bad movie. I just never really got into it. I think the premise is fine, but it's a little boring to me. For being their second movie right after Toy Story, I really have to only give it a 5 out of 10. Our next movie is Toy Story 2. Toy Story 2 is easily my favorite of the Toy Story movies. I just think it has a lot of heart, and this scene where Jessie's talking about being loved by that little girl and then she abandoned her, and then the song When She Loved Me is playing. I think that's such a heartwarming scene. I cry every time. So Toy Story 2 is a great movie. I'd give it an 8.7 out of 10. Our next movie is Monsters Incorporated. I really like the dynamic between Sully and Boo, and also Sully and Mike. I think the world building is really interesting, this idea of a whole monster dimension and they come through the doors. I think that's a really interesting thing that could only be done by Pixar. Even though it's not my favorite of the Pixar movies, I still gotta give it credit where credit is due, and I'll give it a 6 out of 10. Our next movie is Finding Nemo. Now, I don't know if this is just me, but I feel like Finding Nemo was the first Pixar movie I remember watching. I think it's really a sweet story. It has everyone crying in the first 5 minutes when Marlin loses his wife and all his kids except for Nemo. So you have your comic relief in Dory and her interactions with Marlin, but then you have some serious topics where, like, Nemo's straight up kidnapped and in danger. I'd give it an 8.4 out of 10. Alright, next we have The Incredibles. Now, this is an awesome movie. It is a superhero film, but told with interesting implications. I love the idea of talking about the theme of, what if someone doesn't want to be saved? Do you still have an obligation to save them? It also has one of my favorite villains in all the Pixar movies, which is Syndrome. And I think it's a really good idea because he's technically a twist villain because you don't expect it to be Buddy from the beginning. But he's introduced about halfway through, not in the last third, which most twist villains are introduced in. And I think that really adds to it because you get to learn about him as a character and really understand his worldview. Overall, Incredibles is an awesome movie. I'd give it a 9 out of 10. Next, we have Cars. I don't like the Cars franchise. I don't like any of the 3 movies. I think the premise is alright, but the first movie, everything could be exactly the same if they were humans and not cars. Okay concept, but poor execution. I'd give it a 3 out of 10. Our next movie is Ratatouille. I think this is probably a universally liked movie. I'm gonna be honest, like, the story is objectively like an interesting story and an interesting concept, but I don't like watching the movie for the simple fact that the idea of, like, mice or rats or any rodent anywhere near food really grosses me out. So I'm gonna put that aside and give this movie the 7 out of 10 it deserves. Our next movie is WALL-E. Now, I also really like this movie. I think the relationship between WALL-E and Eve is super cute. I love their dynamics. And I just, in general, I like the movie. I like the style of animation. I love the ending. I just think it's an all-around a good movie. I'd give it a 7.5 out of 10. Alright, so our next movie is Up. Now, full disclosure, I'm very biased here. I saw this movie on my 7th birthday with my dad, and it's always held a special place in my heart. It's my favorite Pixar movie by far. I just really love the premise. I think the first 10 minutes are probably the most beautiful 10 minutes of any Pixar movie ever. Overall, it's a beautiful movie. It's told beautifully. The animation makes me cry every time. If you go into the FDN room and you look at my desktop background, it is an Up theme. I just love the movie so much, and I rated it 10 out of 10, but I want to be fair, and so I'm going to give it a 9.9 out of 10. Alright, our next movie is Toy Story 3. Now, Toy Story 2 is my favorite Toy Story movie, but this is a close second. I think it's just such a sweet story. It has a great message of growing up and moving on. The ending is beautiful where Andy's giving the toys to Bonnie. I'd give Toy Story 3 an 8.5 out of 10. So we have Cars 2, and you can just fast forward to all my thoughts about the original Cars to kind of guess where I'm coming from this one. Overall, I don't like the movie. It's a 2 out of 10. Our next movie is Brave, and just like Up, I saw this on my 10th birthday. If I'm being honest, it's only an okay movie. Merida is an interesting character, but she also kind of comes across as just like stereotypical, very flat, strong woman character. Mulan's a great example of a strong woman character who's not flat. She has emotion, she has feelings, she has conflicts. And while Merida does have that, it just doesn't come across on screen as well as I think they originally intended it to. Overall, it's a good movie, but like 6 out of 10. Next is Monsters University. Now, I'm gonna be honest, I would much rather have had a sequel than a prequel to the original Monsters, Inc. Overall, it's just like an alright movie. I'd give it a 5.7 out of 10. Our next movie is Inside Out, and it goes along with my theme of watching movies on my birthday. I saw this, I believe, on my 13th birthday. I really like Inside Out. I think it's got a really sweet message, and overall, I really like this movie. I'd give it a 7.9 out of 10. Alright, next we have The Good Dinosaur. Good Dinosaur wasn't good enough for Rachel to watch. Sorry. Next we have Finding Dory. I think it's such a cute story. Was it necessary? No. But I think it's really nice and told in a fun way, and I think it's just kind of sweet. I'm gonna give it an 8.2 out of 10. So our next movie is Cars 3, and once again, this movie I will put under haven't seen. We've only seen like the first 10 minutes of it, and then I was like, oh, I've got better things to do. Our next movie is Coco. Such a sweet movie. It's such a interesting movie. It's such a beautiful movie. The animation in Coco, when they're in the land of the dead, is beautiful. It's just such a beautifully told story, and the music is amazing. 8 out of 10 from Rachel. Next is Incredibles 2. I love the original Incredibles. If you fast forward, I gave it a 9 out of 10. And for having 14 years to create a sequel, I was kind of disappointed with Incredibles 2. It just felt kind of unnecessary, and the villain's motivation was kind of weird. Jack getting his powers is an amazing scene. I think that is probably the best scene in the movie, where Jack is fighting that raccoon with all his powers. I think that's hilarious. I love it so much. And while it's not a bad movie, I think just in comparison to its predecessor, I'd have to give it a 6.5 out of 10. Our last movie is Toy Story 4, and I actually saw it the day it came out with Claire, and I actually really loved it, but my main problem is I don't want Toy Story 4 to exist. The original Toy Story opens with a shot of Andy's cloud wallpaper, and Toy Story 3 ends with it panning up to the clouds above Bonnie's house, and it's in the same position. On its own, it's an amazing story. It's beautiful. I cried. The ending is so well done. The animation is flawless. Some of the scenes look like they're real life, but it's all computer. On its own, I'd probably give this movie like an 8 out of 10. I have to give it a 7.4 just because it ruined the trilogy that was Toy Story. Alright, so those are my opinions on all the Pixar movies. I haven't seen Onward yet. It came out a few weeks ago. I'll see it probably after we're out of quarantine. Pixar is a great studio. They make great movies, and they talk about topics that most movie studios don't talk about, and they tell it from very interesting standpoints. They're so creative, and I'm really glad that they have the artistic integrity to keep making original content and making beautiful stories that make you laugh and cry all, in the span of an hour and 30 minutes. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this, and look out on the channel for more content from your favorite FDN people. Bye.
That's the video, guys. Hope you enjoyed.
Quality over quantity.
Bye.
Peace!